welcome to another edition, an all-star break edition of the Durham Bulls Podcast. If it's the first time you're joining the pod, we thank you. Please subscribe if you can on Apple and on Spotify for the audio version, or you can go on to our YouTube channel, Durham Bulls TV, to actually visibly watch this pod with our very special guest here today. So, as I mentioned, this is the Durham Bulls all-star break when we're recording this, so it takes a special character, a special human to be willing to give up 30 minutes of his time during the All-Star break, as precious as it is. So we've had a lot of great guests on the show. Miles Masterboni, Ryan Stanek, Jim Morris, the rookie, was on a few weeks ago. And a great privilege to bring in a new Durham Bull player here in 2024 in pitcher Joe Record, who clearly has nothing better to do with his All-Star break than sit and talk with us. Hi, Joe. How you doing?
Good. How are you? That was a great introduction, by the way. Thank you.
Well, first off, thank you. You've been just a wonderful soul with the Durham Bulls over the 3.5 to 4 months that I've had the opportunity to get to know you and your family. Well, I guess the first question is, what has your Durham Bulls experience been like? What did you know about the Bulls and what the Durham Bulls image and brand is before you signed with Tampa Bay?
Yeah, my experience is awesome. I've had a great time, great coaches, great staff, great players. The city is sweet. I get to walk from my apartment. Actually, it's in the background if you can see it, straight to the field. So that's awesome. And I knew how historic it was based off the movie, obviously, one of the best baseball movies ever made. But I didn't understand how many fans they get. And the fans here are, I think, the best fans in minor league baseball. I mean, I've been to a lot of places in my minor league career, and these are the most consistent and best fans I've ever seen.
Well, I mean, you were with a fairly new AAA franchise last year with the Astros. Sugarland was an independent team for several years. They drew well. Then when Major League Baseball overtook the minors and kind of reorganized things, they brought Sugarland in as a AAA squad. They draw well down there. Aren't they baseball crazy down there?
They're actually not. There's a few nights of the week that they are, or when we have a big rehabber like Jose Altuve or somebody like that, they pack out. They're waiting in line to see those guys. But
they're not waiting in line to
really
see Joe Record.
Not yet.
I can't believe this.
I wish.
What's the matter with him?
Yeah, seriously, right? I haven't earned that street cred yet. But it's also 100% humidity and 100 degrees Fahrenheit every game. So, I mean, and the Houston Astros are right around the corner, about 20 minutes away. So, if you're going to watch baseball, they're probably going to pick the AC over hot and humid outdoors. You know?
So what has been the biggest, if there's been a biggest surprise of your time in Durham and your experience in Durham on or off the field in the area? What would that be to you?
Biggest surprise. Oh, the food here is excellent. Like randomly. I'm not kidding. There's random restaurants, Little Bowl, Mezcalito. I mean, Moe's is right here. I mean, Moe's
I love Moe's.
Makes it that crazy, but no, yeah. I would say the food is actually way better than I anticipated.
So why the Rays, right? I mean, you pitched well last year. We'll get into that unusual season for you in a little bit, but why did you feel like the Tampa Bay Rays at this stage of your career was the right landing spot for you?
So they reached out to me pretty early in the offseason, and when they reached out to me and my agent, once they reached out, I had this feeling, and I've heard so many, like time and time again, that how they develop players, whether it's a position player, pitcher, and the things they do to help each guy learn. So right when they reached out, I felt pretty comfortable on making the decision to come over here. And I also had a good friend, Calvin Fauché, that was playing here for I think 2 or 3 years. I'm not too sure how long. But I hit him up. I called him, and he said, "Dude, if you have an opportunity to go, you should go." It's a great organization.
Yeah, and he's one of my favorites over the last 5 or 6 years. I mean, great dude, father now of a young baby, and his family is just an incredible group of people as well. So when he came through in a rehab earlier this season, I was really happy to see him.
Oh, did you think I said Fauché?
Oh, you said Calvin Fauché. Oh,
Fauché, yeah.
Well, he's also one of my favorites. He's also one of my favorites.
Yeah, Fauché.
There we
Voucher.
go. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You're right. Right,
The
right, right.
way it's spelled can get you confused for sure.
We're all on baseball all-star breaks here. I apologize. Yeah. Oh, so we saw
There
Calvin
we go.
in Jacksonville earlier this year before he's gone up to the
Yeah, we did.
Marlins. Yeah.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was the conversation like with him? I mean, what did he say specifically? Because Calvin was a guy acquired from the Twins when he was at AA, went to Montgomery, then came here, and
Yeah.
they almost immediately gave him an opportunity at the big league level.
Yeah. So for him, he has a lot of really good stuff. Um, and so like by stuff, I mean pitch repertoire, velocity. And when he came over here, they simplified a lot of pitching for him. And I don't want to put words into his mouth, but that's pretty much what he said. The simplification of pitching when you come to this organization is bar none, and it kind of clears your mind and it lets you just go out, have fun, and compete. And that was pretty much what sold me.
All right. So now that you've been in the Rays organization since spring training and had
Yeah,
4 or 5 months working with Brian Reith, what has he done for your style, for your mechanics, for your psychology of getting
yeah.
to the major leagues in your time here with the Rays?
So without looking at my baseball reference page, I felt like I've made I've made strides this year. Some of the results do not um, say that, but Reef has helped me out with like I said earlier, simplifying pitching, going out there and competing with whatever I have that day, and attacking hitters, and also pitch design stuff like help me with my slider and my sinker, that the nuances. But a lot of coaches can do that. I think it's hard for coaches to help to simplify the game for people,
Mhm.
and Brian does a great job doing that.
So the Rays are now your third professional organization after the Twins and the Astros. We
Yeah,
know about the Rays and how entrenched they are with analytics and spin
yeah,
rates and horizontal break. I mean, all of the metrics that all of the other major league teams are now kind of adopting, like the
hmm
Rays do, but they're behind the curve. Um, so when you compare the other two organizations, the Twins and the Astros, versus how the Rays do it as far as an analytics piece of it, what do you see as the differences between those three organizations?
So, like you said, all the other teams are kind of getting on board, right? I think throughout baseball, people know that the Rays, the Dodgers, and the Astros are the pretty much
Mhm.
the top dogs in terms of the information race, I guess you'd say, um, on the spin rates and all that. So the Astros were very similar,
Mhm.
um, and they were right on par. I think I'm not too sure. I don't know that as much. And the Twins, they were also doing a lot of it when I was there, and that was in 2017 to
Mhm.
2020. So I think the Rays kind of they don't show you necessarily all the stuff you don't need to see, um, because they don't want you thinking of that. So it's hard to say like how technological advanced they are, but knowing how they scout, how each player gets better, who goes with them, or 99% of the players, it's pretty evident to see how good they are at using that data.
Are there things? I mean, knowing you as much as I do, and knowing from some of the things we've done, kind of off the field together, I get the impression that you are kind of a numbers or a stats or a metrics or an analytics type guy, at least leaning that direction. So,
Yeah,
if that is true, what are the things that interest you as far as after you finish an appearance on? Hey, how did my stuff look? How did my shape look? What kind of break did I have? What was my spin rate? I mean, what are those elements of analytics?
yeah.
Which ones matter to Joe Record?
The ones that matter to me the most are in zone percentages. Where am I throwing my pitches? Where are my misses at? And I think there's times in my career where my first initial thought was, let's look at velocity, let's look at movement. And that's all cool, but that doesn't necessarily compete all the time. So I've kind of changed my focus to more where am I throwing these pitches?
Mhm.
And then I'll go to the shape of my pitches and see if they're fine. And if they're fine, then great.
Mhm.
But really just executing in the zone and out of the zone when I need to is the most important thing for me.
And
So
how much
that's
has
what
that
I'm worried
changed?
about.
How much has that changed year over year from last year in Sugarland with the Astros to this year with the Rays?
What change?
I mean, as far as your improvement or the things that you want to see improvements from last year to
Yeah.
this year.
It changed a lot. I mean, it changed a lot, especially when that's what I'm mostly focused on. Last
Mhm.
year, I don't think I was necessarily entirely focused on where I wanted to start certain pitches and where I wanted them to end. And this year, that's more my goal.
Mhm. So I'm sure our fans are really interested to hear about anybody's story, anybody's journey that brings
Hmm.
them here to do them. So let's just start with your background growing up in southeast of Los Angeles in Placentia, California, and what was that like for you as a kid and your family background, and how did the interest in a pro career in baseball really begin for you?
Yeah, so growing up as the youngest of two brothers, the competition was always huge in my household, and so is sports. So if we weren't sleeping or if we weren't at school, we were playing sports, and that was pretty much my childhood. My dad was the coach of all my teams, and my mom was a team mom and or president of of the organizations, the little leagues and the pop waters and stuff.
Mhm.
So we had a very good support system as well as good brothers to compete with and play sports with all the time.
Well, I mean, was baseball always your favorite sport, or was it
Oh
just
yeah,
the sport that you were the best at?
no, baseball was my favorite. Actually, my brother, who's 2 years older than me, he always loved to hit. So when I was about two, when I was still in diapers, he would make me pitch all the time. So I would pitch to him, and I guess we could have like full on like pitcher versus hitter live at bats. My dad said at age 2 and 4. Um, so I don't think I got to swing the bat until I was probably 5. So that's probably why my hitting skills are pretty
So
a little
I
bit
just need to
behind.
freeze the frame here for a second because it's the All-Star break, and I have a 2.5-year-old Cade, and
Yeah,
already I'm teaching him like a two-handed backhand on the tennis courts, and he's got a
yeah,
Rafael
you are.
Nadal left-handed forehand, right?
Yeah,
So what was your dad teaching you like a two-seamer when you're 2-year-old in diapers?
I don't know about a two seamer. I think he just wanted me to throw it hard, try to get it by him. Uh, but yeah, he taught me everything I know about baseball. Um, he always thought I was going to be a hitter.
Mm.
Because that's what he was. He played a lot of baseball growing up. And he would have gone farther in baseball if he had the opportunity financially.
Mm.
But his family did not. But he was a really good hitter. My brother was a really good hitter, and I was good for years
Hmm.
until I got to high school. Hit a growth spurt. I grew like 7 inches, and I lost my hand-eye coordination for a little bit.
Oh wow. So wait,
So yeah,
how small? So we had Jake Mangum on the podcast a couple of months ago, and he was like 140 pounds graduating high school. I mean, he was a
okay, yeah,
small. What was the growth spurt for you? Because you're what, 6'4",
I'm like 6.
250 now?
Yeah, yeah. I'm like 6'3", 250.
Okay.
My freshman and sophomore year of high school. Well, my freshman year was 5'2". My sophomore year, I was like 5'4", 5'5", and then my junior year, I got up to 6'2". Like that summer, I came back and everyone was like, "Yeah, who's this? This
This is
this
amazing.
your cousin?"
I would have been taller than you your freshman and sophomore years in high school.
Oh
That's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
Now you
And my
outweigh me by
brother,
about 100.
oh yeah, not all of it good weight though, Pat. Come on, not all of it. But my brother, yeah, he started school early, and so when he got to high school, he was 5 foot, and then he was 5'2" until his senior year. So sports for him, he kind of got the tail end of that one.
So what were these games like? Because I'm the youngest of four, three boys. So it's
Mhm.
oldest brother, middle brother, sister, and then me. And we were hyper competitive, right? But we would play
Yeah,
wiffle ball games in the backyard, go to the neighbors, the Barrett's house, and play Nerf football, and kick field goals in the fields. What was it like as far as? And there's a 2-year spread between you and your brother, right?
yeah,
So what
yeah,
were games like? Where did you play them? And was it just
yeah.
you against him, or did you incorporate a lot of your friends?
So we had a lot of neighborhood friends, but they didn't play as long as we played throughout the day. Even when the street lights went on, we were still playing. They were ultra competitive. At young ages, they wouldn't end in like the game being over. It'd end with something broken, someone's arm or finger broken, like a window broken, or a fight. or
Yeah.
someone crying, and then that's how it ended. They weren't innings. It was when something bad happened. That's when the game ended.
And how many of these
Um,
times were you the one with broken bones or broken glass or tears?
yeah, yeah. I don't want to admit to some of the tears, but those did happen. I mean, it took me a while to be able to beat him.
Mm,
It took me some years, but there was a moment where I started getting a lot of the wins,
yeah.
and then
And
when I got a little older.
are you using wiffle ball bats, wooden bats,
Yeah.
aluminum bats, stick
So
bats? What are you using?
they used to have these, I don't know if they still do, wiffle bats that were black and they kind of look like a wood bat, but
Hmm.
they're plastic. That was our go-to. And we'd tape them up, or we get a ball, we'd tape that up with electrical
Yeah.
tape so it went farther, and it curved more. We that was probably our daily go-to right there.
Now, I'm betting because you were a 28th round pick out of UC Santa Barbara that your signing bonus was not huge, but did you take some of that money and pay restitution to the neighbors for all the broken windows?
I gotta pay my parents for that. I mean, they wore that bill. They put that bill. Even yeah, even 2 years ago in the off season, we went back, me and my brother, and we were playing a game called like tennis racquetball. Just hitting the tennis ball or using a tennis racket to hit a racquetball at each other in the street. And I chased the ball down and I broke a Tesla windshield. And so it was just like old times again. It was like it never stopped.
I hope you left a note, right?
Oh yeah, we had to. I mean, it was a Tesla, so it recorded us, and then we didn't go running.
And you
We
said, wait, you said the goal of the game was to not hit the ball, was to hit each other.
No, we were just hitting back and forth, but
Oh, okay,
like we were separated with 100 yards of
I
distance,
see.
and so that ball was going crazy.
Man, I got to hang out with you more often. These are great stories. You may have just frozen, or maybe it's me, Joe. Hang out. Am I back?
Oh,
There.
can you hear
Okay,
me?
now
Yeah,
I'm back. Sorry.
yeah.
I think I froze for a second. We're still
Oh yeah,
rolling. But that's what podcasts are all about. We're just gonna go with the flow here. If we get disconnected, I'm wearing a t-shirt today on this podcast. So it's the
there we
All-Star
go.
break. So all right, so let's talk a little bit about first off your time at El Dorado High School.
Hmm.
Because this, as I did some digging on the school and the baseball program, it has produced a lot of guys that I've either seen play or we've all seen play on television. Brett Boone, Chris Crone, Phil Nevin, who managed in this league a few years ago in Toledo, and an outstanding major leaguer. What was? Tell me about the baseball program as you got to El Dorado High and how competitive and how high level it was.
Very competitive. I so in middle school, I was like, and like going all the way up to middle school, I was one of the better players in Little League and travel ball. Like I was the shortstop and all that. And then I got to high school, and I'm still very nervous just to make the freshman team. It's not You're not just getting on for being the best kid in your area. So it's highly competitive, and most kids at El Dorado going in, if you're really good, you still start on the freshman team and then go to JV and then go to varsity. So it's a prestigious school for baseball. I mean, it's very historical, but it's also very competitive. So you had to work your tail off to get on one of the teams.
And was that the process for you? I mean, was it a 3 year
Yeah,
plan? Your junior year is the first year you played varsity?
yeah. Especially with my being so small, that
Hmm.
how small I was. Um, but yeah, my junior year, I even barely made the team then, and I didn't pitch until the spring break tournament, and I got a chance to pitch in the championship game at Cal State Fullerton, and took a no hitter into the seventh. And so that kind of put me on the map, and that basically is what started my baseball career. Honestly, I didn't I didn't expect to play after high school
So you
until
thought
then.
when high school baseball was done, what did you think was next for you? Was it college? Was it going straight into the
Yeah,
workforce?
yeah. So believe it or not, I was a big science guy in high school, taking AP Chem and loving science and biology and stuff. And so I wanted to go to med school. I wanted to go do pre med and then go to med school. Um, my parents would have hated paying for that. Or
Especially
my
after
loans,
replacing all those windshields.
yeah,
You're
exactly.
running a little low on funds
Uh,
here, Joe.
yeah, yeah. But that was my plan, and then junior year, I had that breakout game, and
Mhm.
my plans kind of changed.
So not getting too far down the road. So in 10, 15 years time after baseball is done, is that still is that still maybe a goal or an objective in the back of your mind?
Oh no, oh, oh no, because I would have to go back to school for another 8 years by then. I don't even know if I'll be able to walk, let alone help people walk.
Oh, all right. So that one breakout game was kind of, did you realize the impact after that game?
I
What
was
it may have,
getting,
how it may have just changed the arc of your future?
I kind of did because it was on a big stage.
Mhm.
We had a lot of scouts there, and as funny as it sounds, like a lot of the premier travel ball like coaches there that were calling me and telling me, "Look, you're coming to this tournament, please." Like, and I never had that before, and so getting that, I was like, okay, well, I mean, that game kind of just set me apart from some of my peers. That's pretty cool.
So I know I don't know the answer to this question. I know you were drafted in 17 and signed after your what fourth year, third year playing, but fourth year at UCSB. Were you
Yeah,
drafted out of high school? I mean, did you get that much visibility of going? Were you a late round draft pick and just decided not to sign, or did that just open things up on the college side?
I just it. I was getting looks at possibly signing, but I kind of made it apparent that I did not want to go to pro ball right away unless it was the right amount of money. I mean, I enjoyed school, and
Mhm.
knowing I was going to UC Santa Barbara, I was pretty stoked for that. That was one of my top schools. Um, and to be honest, I wasn't ready. I think I would have been out of baseball by now if I didn't go to UCSB. I wasn't mature enough to handle the professional aspects of baseball, like doing like training, arm care,
Yeah.
um, and all that. So I think college was very good for me.
I'm just really curious. I just need to back up for a little bit. What stoked the interest in science? Because I don't come across many athletes who are, I mean, the ones who are interested in finance or in accounting or in
Yeah,
medicine or science, those really stick out to me as they're not outliers, I just don't come across people who have that as a passion and as a background when they're young
yeah.
kids. And I'm sure it originated somewhere with a teacher or with a parent or somewhere. Where did that start for the interest in science?
I think there's a couple reasons. It's hard to pinpoint.
Mhm.
Like growing up, I would go to a zoo camp in LA, the LA Zoo. My grandma would take me there, and I hated it at first. I remember crying. You know, yes, you're 6 years old, and you got to meet all these new people.
Hmm.
But over time, I enjoyed it, and I remember in third grade, I think I was good at science in third grade, so my mom put me in a after school program for science, and got to do cool experiments and stuff. And I think that really like ignited. That was the catalyst
And a couple of other things that
to
I've
spark my interest.
come across with your background that also strike me as really cool and very unusual is on your bio on your UCSB page.
Mhm.
Um, you mentioned Beethoven and you mentioned War and Peace. Um, not to stereotype
Yeah,
athletes, but there aren't many athletes who find a distinct interest in reading and in classical music. So when I
yeah,
read those about you, two things came to mind. One, need to find out more and how that interest began. And the probably most voracious reader I've come across on a Durham Bulls team over the years is a guy by the name of Neil Wagner. And Neil
okay,
Wagner, up and down to the big leagues, he retired a few years ago, but he would always, I mean, always on the bus be reading, not, not a basic book that anybody
yeah,
could just open up. I mean, he was reading, yeah, your Tolstoy's. He was reading, I mean, just as deep and thorough of challenging books. That was what he loved. That's how he spent his time. So where did all those interests begin and why?
so those I'm sorry to burst your bubble. I'm
Don't
really
tell me it
sorry.
was a joke.
Yeah,
No,
those were
no,
complete jokes.
you're
I
killing me.
honestly, at the time, I didn't think anyone, I was in college, my college bio, I didn't think anyone would read it. I knew my mom would. My parents would read that, and my family, and to make them laugh.
Oh
I,
no.
I would put stuff like that. My coach didn't like it, but my teammates thought it was hilarious. I still love science,
At
but
least that part's
um,
accurate.
but I did at the time. I was
Mhm.
listening. There was times where I listened to Beethoven to help me
Okay.
study, but it wasn't like I knew any
Mm.
of the compositions or I knew any of that.
You
And
weren't
War and
a
Peace.
child prodigy, no.
No, no,
That's
no,
where I really was
no.
hoping this would go, Joe.
Oh yeah, that would be sweet. Yeah, that's not me. Yeah, that's that's
And
definitely not
so
me.
backing up, I need to like complete the circle. Backing up, just folks, 5 minutes ago, Joe said he wasn't ready to sign out of high school because he wasn't mature enough. And
Yeah,
so
yeah, and then I
now 10
still
years later, you think you're more mature now, Joe? Is this what I'm hearing?
a little bit. There's still improvement to be had.
All right,
But hey,
so
I did those in college, so that was 5 years ago.
that's true. That's true.
Yeah,
That's true. This is
or
not a
no, 7 years
decade ago.
ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, seven
Yeah.
years
Somebody needs to
ago.
contact your SID at Santa Barbara, like 404, your personal biography on that website. Anyway, so
Invalid.
let's talk about let's talk about your time at Santa Barbara, because you were there and you were part of one of the more glorious and unexpected runs of a college
Yeah,
baseball team to Omaha in 2016. But you were there a couple of years prior, had some injuries, saw kind of the growth and the train go in the right direction. But then in
uh,
2016, literally out of nowhere, out of the Big West,
yeah,
the Gauchos are going to Omaha. What was
that's
that
right.
season like? And we'll get to the specifics of Omaha in a minute.
That season was really fun. Because all we did, we heard what people were saying about it. It's that rebuilding year. Like,
Bruh.
rebuilding what? Like, this is us. This is the year. And so we were playing not with a bag of chips on our shoulder. It's not just a fucking chip on our shoulder. No, we kind of like came together collectively, and we're almost like we were just having fun and like winning games. And so we're like, well, let's just keep having fun and winning games, and who cares what people say about us? See how far we could get. And we had a like our parents were very awesome and very supportive. There were the loudest people there, and they were celebrating every win with us.
Mm.
So we had a very good team camaraderie. Not only that, but we had really good pitchers like
Yeah.
Shane Bieber,
Yeah.
Kyle Nelson, Noah Davis. So all those together kind of helped out.
Tell me about the recruiting process with Andrew Checketts, because he had been there. He had been the one who had kind of provided the vision of what he saw this program turning into eventually. And you had mentioned that was kind of one of the schools at the top of your list, even if baseball wasn't in your future. Was that still the school you were going to, or was that after your big performance that they became kind of your destination spot?
So prior to the big performance, I was thinking more locally for colleges. I know Santa Barbara's only 3.5, 4 hours away from my
Mhm.
house, but I was thinking more I'd go down south, San Diego State, or something along those lines. I kind of confined myself to that, knowing how expensive schools are.
Mhm.
And if I wanted to get help from my parents, I couldn't go to a
Yep.
UC school. Um, but once the window of colleges opened up after that performance, that was like my number one.
And what people maybe, especially here in ACC and SEC country, may not really understand, there are some unbelievable players that have come through that program prior to what you guys did in 2016. I mean, Skip Schumacher
Mm-hmm.
managed the
Yep.
Marlins, played down there. Barry Zito came through Santa Barbara. I mean, Larry Dirk. I mean, there's a really lengthy list of people who committed to that program and saw something in that program and were
Yeah.
developed into professional and major league players from that program.
Yeah. Yeah. Even though they weren't known as a huge baseball school, they've had really good baseball players come through there before we did.
So
Yeah.
take me through the run to get to Omaha, because it was not easy,
Yeah.
right? I mean, you were an
Crazy.
at-large team. You had to go to Nashville, right, to take on Vandy, which is the perennial power at that stage,
Mm-hmm.
and somehow get through that region. And Walk me through how you did.
Yeah. So like we said, no one thought we should be there. So our first game, we won the 11th inning or something. So we celebrated that like we won the national championship. And then the next game we won. We shouldn't have won that apparently. So we celebrated that like the national championship. And every game we just looked at like, wow, this could be our last one. So we can play like it's gonna be our last one. And so we did, and it turned out until Omaha, that's when our last one
Yeah.
was.
And so let's stay in Nashville for one more question because
Yeah.
you didn't even have to play Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt
No.
got knocked out early, and it kind of opened up the bracket for somebody to, I don't want to say steal, but somebody to walk away with the Nashville regional title.
Yeah, and I mean, there might have been a reason for their performance that year. It's a tough subject to talk about. They had a player that drowned and passed away 2 days prior to the start of the regional. And when we went and we got to the field and showed up, their team was coming out of a meeting and they were all informed of what happened. And it was the saddest thing I've ever seen. I mean, 30, 18 to 22-year-olds just crying when being in a regional, and it should be at a really happy point in their life. But it was a very tragic accident that happened.
What was the vibe then over the next 4 or 5 days there? How hard was it for everybody to play?
I mean, it was tough. It was definitely way harder for them, their friend, their teammate, um, and you could definitely feel the morose and like the sadness of the event surrounding the regional in itself. Yeah,
All right, so you came out of that regional and then take on Brennan McKay
yeah, we did.
and Louisville, a guy who
Yeah,
I guess you got to know him a little bit when he came through Durham
yeah, I did.
a couple of months
Great
ago.
guy,
And
great guy.
did you guys talk about that super regional against Louisville, or a sore
Yeah, we
subject for
brought
him?
it. I brought it up. I brought it up.
I'm
I
sure you
wanted to
did.
hear it. Um,
I doubt that Brennan would bring it up.
no, no. I mean, he pitched good against us. He
Yeah.
played good against us.
Mhm.
We had some timely hits against him the first game, and Bieber went against him, and Bieber threw a fantastic game. Um, but that's not the game everyone talks about.
That's right.
Everyone talks about the second game where the first round closer and Birdie was a Ray
Yeah, yeah. Was
at
with us
one
last
point.
year.
Really good pitcher, really good stuff, and we had quite the guy come off the bench, and Sam Cohen, who was a freshman, had like 17 at bats. And he barely went up and went over the fence with bases loaded. And I still, even talking about it or watching videos, I get the chills because it's
Yeah.
such a crazy moment. The odds were against him. Let me say that.
Where were you? Were you in the dugout? Were you in the
So
bullpen? Where were you? And then what were you thinking pre at bat as Sam's come to the plate with barely more than a dozen at bats in his entire college career
yeah.
in a big spot?
So pre at bat. So I was the Sunday guy all year. So I was pitching the next day. So I was kind of getting into that mental zone of like, how am I going to attack these guys? And I was doing the scorebook when our pitchers were pitching the innings, half inning prior. So when we were up, I just sat on the bench. When we were hitting, I sat on the bench. I was like, all right, I got to focus for tomorrow. Let's go. Like, and then my buddy gets a hit, a walk. And I might not have to pitch against these guys tomorrow. I'm kidding. I wanted to pitch against them, but
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this could be it. I mean, I could be pitching in Omaha and not pitch tomorrow. And then we hit that. When we got on the bus, I mean, we almost flipped the bus. It was an awesome moment for us. Yeah,
And
because
there's such a quick turnaround, So I when we had Jake Mangum on the show, he talked about the trip to Omaha and it being like the Disney World of baseball. But there's almost no time to enjoy because you're winning the Super Regional on maybe a Monday, and you're going to Omaha maybe as early as Thursday, right, to get ready for the first weekend.
yeah,
But for you guys, I mean, what was that like? How much of an out of body experience was it? And then to try and reset and get ready and get all the family and friends and everything you need to Omaha. What was that, 4 or 5 day period like?
So we were on the road for 28 straight days. We didn't go back home to Santa Barbara. So we just kept going from one place to another place. And our poor AD, I mean, he did a great job, but nothing like this has happened for us. So getting the funds and getting us here and getting us there, that had to be a pain in the ass. But he made it possible. Not only that, we were on the quarter system. We're a UC school. And so we were taking our finals in hotel rooms, like in the hotel lobbies, while also playing. So we were, did I cut out?
No, I got
so
you.
we were studying, we were studying and then taking finals before our big playoff games and stuff.
So your academic advisors are making their money right there.
Oh, they were making their money.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we were on the road for 28 days, so we couldn't really, there's no reset, and you were just going. So I think that helped us. If we would have went back home, it kind of would have, might have not deflated us, but taken our mind off of what we came here to accomplish.
So I know there are a lot of fans from Omaha who just kind of, this is their experience. They go to the College World Series every year. They adopt a team and say that's our Cinderella. This is the team we locals are going to root for. Was that Cinderella team that the locals adopted? Was that UC Santa Barbara?
Yeah, it was. We were one of the teams for sure. There was a couple teams there that year that the team that won it. I'm blanking on the name right now, probably because I wish we won it. But the team that
was it Coastal Carolina that year?
Coastal, Coastal.
Yeah. Zach Remillard was on that team. Yeah.
So Coastal was also kind of like an underdog, I guess. And so we were the two teams that locals gravitated to.
So what was it like the first time you guys take the field in Omaha, first time in school history, and a team that I'm guessing a lot of fans didn't even know what the nickname of UC Santa Barbara was?
Yeah, people, they would say, "What's a guaucho?" Like, what do we got here? I was like, to be honest, man, I don't really know either. But we got to play the first game, and that was against Oregon State, and we had a flyover, jets flying over. And if you've ever experienced that on like being on the field or even in the press box, and jets are flying over like that, you get the chills knowing you're about to compete. After that, it just, you feel it through your body. And then the crowd was obviously packed, and it was the first game, so it was quite the scene.
I mean, at this stage of your career, this has to be the biggest baseball event of your life.
In terms of fans and all that, no doubt.
So let's move on then to, first of all, we're visiting with Joe Record of the Durham Bulls. Thanks so much for your time during the All-Star break. So we just experienced the amateur draft over the last couple of days here in 2024. So you have one more year at Santa Barbara, and baseball maybe wasn't even a thing that you were really going to pursue until that one big breakout game when you're a high school junior or senior at that stage.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden it's June of 2017, and you're now in the mix to be drafted. What can you walk me through like the days leading up to the draft and the moment you found out you were drafted by the Twins?
Yeah, so I'm gonna have to take you back to March of that year, where I tore my UCL in the third week of the season. And at the time before that, I was going harder than ever. I was on people's radars to get drafted. And I kind of like created a better stock for myself that off season. But then tore my UCL. So I tried the PRP, the injections to get back so I could possibly get drafted and play pro ball. Tried the PRP, didn't work. So a month before the draft, I emailed every organization and told them, "Hey, if you draft me, I don't want any secrets. If you draft me, I'm gonna need Tommy John." So half the team said, "Hey, we're out." Half the team said, "We might. We're still keeping an eye on you." And I did that just to show faith. And I know people lie about it going into it, and it's not going to help. So going into the draft, I was just hoping I got drafted. I knew I wasn't going day one. After being hurt all year, I knew didn't think I was going day two either. So when day three happened, it was kind of just like, oh, well, just crossing my fingers. This would be a great day. So instead of watching the scrolling meter of everyone getting drafted, I was walking on the beach in Santa Barbara, just kind of take my mind off of it. But every 2 seconds, I was checking if I had phone reception, just in case, But yeah, I finally got the call by the Twins, and they gave me an opportunity.
And I know, having talked with, hundreds of guys over the years, sometimes they get feeler calls about, hey, we're thinking about taking you in the eighth
Yeah,
round or 10th round. Did anybody reach out prior to that? Now, certainly you would reach out to them and they knew the information, but did anybody reach out and say, hey, we're thinking about taking you in the next round? What do you think? Or was this just you
it
admitted what you
was.
had and you just saw your
Yeah.
name pop up and, oh my gosh, somebody has faith in me?
So my advisors were doing that for me at the time, and there was a few calls that said, "Hey, this team's gonna take you in this round, possibly, or this team might in later rounds in 28th." And then the 28th round happened, and I was like, "Oh,
Mhm.
no, that's better than 35, I guess."
And so what did it mean when you finally saw your name on that scroll after all
Um,
those childhood games and broken windshields and dreams that you wanted to realize, and here you are now, you're a professional
it
baseball
was
player.
yeah, it was a dream come true.
Yeah.
It meant that all that was worth it. And all the windows that I broke were worth it. And at least I could say mine or a professional baseball player broke their window. That might make it feel a little
Yeah.
better. But it was sweet because the next day I graduated college too. So
With
my
that.
parents and family were all there. Great week. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So quickly, let's kind of walk through your journey. You're with the Twins for a couple of years. You're now post
Mhm.
surgery. What
Yeah.
was that? What was that time like with Minnesota? What did you learn? And then how did you move from Minnesota to Houston and then Houston to the Rays?
Yeah, so I had to rehab for 17 and 18.
Mhm.
And they wanted to take it slow because there's no reason to rush me to pitch in like a couple games in September. So I finally got healthy and I got to start pitching for him. And I was 24 years old in low A. So I was the oldest guy in low A. Might be a record. uh, but yeah, I ended up pitching pretty well in low A, and so I got called up within a month and was in high A and was pitching in the Florida State League there for the Twins, and then come back the next spring training and I was throwing the ball well and felt really good, and I thought I'd possibly have a chance to break the double A, and then COVID hit,
Mhm.
and so that put the brakes on that. And so after that COVID shut down that off season, I got minor league rule five to the Astros, and that's how I got to the Astros.
Okay. Did you almost feel like your pro baseball career, as much as you wanted it, was snake bitten? I mean, here right before the
Mm,
draft, your elbow gives out, then you're about ready to make a big step to double A, and then COVID happens, and you lose another year after losing a year and a half a couple of years prior.
yeah, I mean, I don't look at it like that
Okay,
because there's probably 100 other guys that had the same
that's fair.
same as me.
Hmm.
So if I'm not gonna, I can't pour me the situation and feel bad about it. Because a lot of people deal with stuff like this, and a lot of people have journeys
Hmm.
crazier, just as crazy as mine.
Right. So just a couple of other topics. First off, Joey, I can't thank you enough for your time. Um, you had almost a year ago to the day, as we sit here in July of 24, reading back on your background and your time in Sugarland last year. A bit
Mhm.
of a health issue came up for you, kind of
Yeah,
unknown to you, but you maybe felt like something was wrong and not quite sure what it was. I've yet to bring this up on our broadcast because I wanted to get information from you first to figure
yeah,
out exactly what happened. Take our fans through the early stages of 2023 when you're in Sugarland and what you're feeling physically and what happened.
Yeah. So it was, I think it started late June, early July. Um, I started losing a lot of weight and feeling fatigued. Um, Pretty much every single day. I'd lose, I mean, one week I lost 10 pounds, in July. The first week of July, I lost 10 pounds. And I felt like absolute garbage. And I thought maybe it's just the humidity, you know. Maybe I'm just sweating more than usual because Sugar Land's hot. Um, but every day I felt irritable and did not feel good. And I kept eating as much as I could to try to get the weight back, and that made me feel worse. And so then over another 3 week span, I lost 25 pounds. My velocity was ticking down like 5 miles per hour. My fastballs were topping out at 89. Um, I've lost basically all my muscle mass. Um, in our in the gym, we have like strength tests to test your peak power
Mm-hmm.
and before you go into perform to make sure everything's all right. And those numbers were insanely down. And I knew something was wrong. Um, and so I kept asking the trainers to get a blood test to to really find out what's wrong with me. And got sent to Houston, Texas to get a blood test. And the next day I found out I was a type 1 diabetic. Uh,
Did you have any idea before? Like, had you done any research on, listen, I'm tired, lost a lot of weight, lost some muscle mass. Like, are you trying to play WebMD and figure out like
oh
what
yeah,
you might have? I mean, what did you think might be going on?
yeah. Well, I'm a science guy, so you knew as I was
Yeah,
googling
yeah.
stuff, googling symptoms and all that. But yeah, I googled all my symptoms. I was peeing a lot. Losing all this weight. I was all muscle mass. And so there were options up there that were a little more frightening uh, than diabetes. Is not to take anything away from the serious disease of diabetes, but um, cancer was one of the options, not options, but cancer was one of the things that was coming up in my symptoms. And that obviously kind of scared me, but I also knew that WebMD is kind of like the worst of the worst. So it's like, all right, let's hope for the best. And so when I actually did get diagnosed with diabetes, I kind of smiled and I was like, okay, cool. And the doctor's like, cool. I was like, yeah, not cancer. Like, I was thinking of the worst.
Mm,
But I think I could handle this. And throughout it, I mean, I've had ups and downs with it. You gotta learning about it and what I can eat, what I can't eat,
mm.
how to best use my insulin, the Dexcoms. Um, it takes a lot, but I'm still learning,
Yeah.
still getting used to it.
What was diabetes one of the possibilities as you were doing
Oh
your own
yeah,
research? You thought that was on the
yeah,
radar as something that could be.
for sure. I thought diabetes was number one.
You
I thought
did.
that was the number one for sure. And
So
our
no
my
real surprise.
no, and my strength coach actually, I was a type 1 diabetic last year.
Hmm.
Um, the strength coach I had last year, and he saw all the symptoms and he was asking me, and he actually tested my blood one time and it said very, very high.
Hmm.
And so he's the one that kind of pushed for the blood test. And but he didn't want to be the one to tell me I'm a diabetic.
Okay.
Uh, he had a little bedside manner about that. But he said you should definitely get.
So how has that changed your baseball life? How has that changed your just physical life? What does it mean? How is
Yeah,
it treated? How is it monitored over the course of just a regular day in the life of Joe Record?
yeah. So as of now, it hasn't changed too much. I mean, I
Mhm.
just have to be aware of what I eat, when I eat. Um, be more on top of that. I obviously have to take a shot every morning. Um, I have to wear Dexcom patches that calculate my
Mhm.
glucose levels. And really just being on top of things.
Okay.
It hasn't affected my baseball performance at all. I mean, there's days that I'm having a bad day for this reason or that reason, but it hasn't negatively affected anything. It's given me more things to do the other day. That's
Yeah.
definitely true. And it's hit the wallet and the bank account quite drastically. That's one of the worst parts of it.
Is that something that's is it insured through the minor league baseball union? I mean, or whatever,
It
whether
doesn't
it's
cover
insulin
much.
or anything like that?
It doesn't cover much. I
Doesn't
would
cover
say
much.
that.
Should it?
I'm a
Should I make a call to Joe Hudson, who
yeah,
is kind of the leader of the minor league union, and see what we can do?
yeah, yeah. I think there needs to be a change. I don't know if it's through that way or another way. There definitely needs to be a change because
Yeah.
the guy who actually created insulin made it free for everyone to use.
Mhm.
These pharmaceutical companies got their hands on it and, very pricey things up.
Mm. Well, I'll make a few calls. I'll see what I can do.
Yeah. Yeah. Get a chief from me, Pat. Come on.
Hey, I weigh about 150 pounds, but my weight carries a lot.
Yeah.
Hey,
There you go.
as we let you go, first off, thanks so much for your time. I'm taking up way too much of your All-Star break time. But one more
All
topic,
good.
if you don't mind, and I hit CJ
Yeah.
Hinojosa with this when he was on a few weeks ago about his hair. This is not about your
Yeah.
hair, but fans come up to me often and say, "What's with the Joe record grunt?" When he makes
Oh
his
yeah.
pitches on the mound, there has to be a story. I can't tell him because I don't know what it is. But how did it begin? Do you know you're doing it? And just walk me through the Joe record grunt.
Uh, so I don't really necessarily know I'm doing it anymore. It's kind of just become second nature for me.
Mhm.
But in college, I was struggling throwing strikes on a bullpen, and my coach Andrew checked it, like, grunt on this pitch, just grunt, throw as hard as you can right down the middle. I did, and I threw it like 91, and that was really hard for me in a bullpen at the time. And he was like, do it again, and then I hit 92. I was like, well, that was better than the shit I was doing before, so I think I'm gonna keep doing this. And so from that on, I just kept doing that.
I mean, you're like the Maria Sharapova of baseball.
Yeah, there
Yeah,
you go.
right.
There you go. Hey, Nolan Ryan used to grunt.
He did. He did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
He threw
Zach Greinke
104.
grunts too. Ah, he threw it maybe. Yeah, we don't know that.
All right. Hey, that's all I have. I can't
Uh,
thank you enough for joining the podcast here today, and enjoy what's left of your All-Star break.
Thank
And
you.
we will see you in Jacksonville this weekend.
Thank you very much for
All right.
having me, Pat.
So
Take
there's
care.
Joe Record, Durham Bulls pitcher. If you would like to subscribe, please do. You can do that on Apple and on Spotify, and you can watch this and hear all the histrionics of Joe's background. You won't be able to see him play any Beethoven, but you can watch him explain his answer about Beethoven. Do that on Durham Bulls TV. So for Joe Record, for Jacoby McDuffie, who's doing all the post-production work behind these podcasts, I'm Patrick Kinas. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week on the Durham Bulls Podcast.